thank you, Freya, for that kind introduction. I am so excited to be part of the 29th edition of the NASSCOM Technology and Leadership Forum, and the very first virtual version of this event. I'm Futurist Steve Brown, and in the next 20 minutes, I want to walk you why I think 6 strategic technologies are going to reshape every business and every industry on the planet, including yours. I want to give you some tips on how you can use those technologies to drive innovation into every corner of your business. Now, to get into that, I need to explain my title a little bit, the Innovation Ultimatum. There are really 2 sides to that. The first is the competitive imperative, which is that the difference between companies who embrace technology and those who don't has always been there, but it is going to widen significantly in the 2020s. As these technologies become increasingly more powerful, that gap is going to become insurmountable for some, and companies risk, I wouldn't say innovate or die, but certainly innovate or wither away to irrelevance, which is almost worse than dying anyway. The other side of the Innovation Ultimatum is the moral imperative. As you're going to see in my presentation, there are many things that you can make, many human problems that can be solved using these technologies. And it's my view that if we can make life better for humanity, if we can support people in their work, if we can solve problems for people using these technologies, then we absolutely should. So that's the other side of the Innovation Ultimatum. Now, to tell this story, we need to think about the big story that's been going on for 30 or 40 years now, which is that the digital world that we know increases in capability exponentially, and the physical world that we inhabit are becoming ever increasingly connected together. We're building a bridge between those 2 worlds so that value created digitally can stream across that bridge and show up in our physical world. Now, there's 6 technologies that I think are all coming to maturity in the 2020s. So they may have been around before now, but they're really maturing in the 2020s all together. They all form this platform of spatial computing, able to connect the physical and the digital in very intimate ways. Let me walk you through those. So there's the Internet of Things, which is sensors that enable the digital world to understand what is happening in our physical world. And then autonomous machines, which enable the digital world to act in our physical world. So that's robots, cobots, drones, autonomous vehicles, trucks, planes, all of it. Then there's the augmented reality, which I move my head, you can see there. Augmented reality blends digital objects and information in our field of view. For most of us, sight is our primary sense, enabling us to start to blend a mixed reality, which is very important in the context of augmented work in particular. Artificial intelligence is an incredibly powerful technology which is able to find patterns in things. This is what's giving us breakthroughs in machine vision, in voice interfaces, in prediction technology, and also in optimization of complex systems. Finally, blockchain technology is able to, because it uses a distributed ledger, which is immutable, you can start to tokenize assets. It can be used for payment systems, for cryptocurrencies, and I think most importantly, to underpin a new system of transparency in our supply chains. More on that later. All of those 5 technologies are going to be connected together using the 6th group of technologies, which is 5G and satellite networks. 5G is what will connect us at incredibly high speeds with great reliability and great responsiveness in cities. And then in rural environments, complementing that with satellite technology that will blanket the planet with connectivity, high bandwidth connectivity, so that by the end of this decade, we will be able to connect everyone and everything everywhere. So that's the big picture. Let's dive into a bit of detail and give you some little stories and examples of how this is coming to life. So if any of you have had a COVID test, this is what it looks like. They shove a swab up your nose and it hurts a little bit. They stick it in a tube, send it off to a lab, and then 2 to 8 days later, when it's sort of useless, they will give you a result. There are now people looking at a digital equivalent of this, which is using simply a microphone and combining it with an AI. A company in Israel called Vocalis Health is able to use their AI to hear disease states in the sound of your voice with what they call vocal biomarkers. Already they've demonstrated they can hear chronic heart failure, coronary artery disease, COPD, and sleep apnea in the sound of your voice. They've just released a COVID diagnostic, which is now going through some clinical trials. It's looking very promising, very high accuracy, similar to that of a chemical test, a biological test. And in future, they hope to be able to hear hypertension, diabetes, and even cancer in the sound of your voice. Think about that. And in the near term, they're hoping to release an app which businesses can use as we're returning to work to be able to screen people. So you just talk into your phone, it connects up to the cloud, and AI analyzes your voice and tells you, yep, you're cleared, you're safe to come back into the office. Another company, Sanala, also an Israeli company, has created a similar device, but in the form of a stethoscope, which is able to hear the body's sounds and then analyze those. They can hear sounds that are beyond the frequency range that a human can hear, analyze those sounds and look for disease states. So expect AI to have significant benefit in diagnostics for healthcare. Another area that might surprise you in the capability of AI, if you've not read this article, after you've watched this keynote, Google it. It was in the Guardian newspaper in the UK, and the article's titled, "A Robot Wrote This Entire Article. Are You Scared Yet, Human?" It's written by the GPT-3 AI, which was released by OpenAI, and it's an op-ed on why humans shouldn't be afraid of AI. Read that article, and it will give you a feel for the state of the art in these incredible language models that can create content. Now, that GPT-3 AI doesn't just write articles, it can also write code. It has been trained on a huge data set, which includes most of the web pages on the internet. So it is able to take a natural language input, in this case you see an example, a button that looks like a watermelon, and create the HTML code or the JavaScript code that's needed to generate that capability. Think about what that might mean for software programming in the future. We've moved from machine code, assembly code, low-level languages, high-level languages, object-oriented, all the way up to sort of Python that we use today. What's beyond that? Maybe we look at a collaborative environment where the compiler has an AI, the programmer speaks to that compiler, and the compiler generates the code that does what the programmer guides it to do. That could be where we're headed in the next 5 to 10 years. Another example of an AI. This one is used in Hollywood. It analyzes scripts and gives the green light on whether that's going to make a good movie or not. In tests in 2015 and 2016, these AIs were more successful at picking winners and losers than Hollywood movie moguls. So it's an incredibly powerful tool. Some of these AIs are even able to predict what the opening box office weekend take will be and suggest which locations in a country or which countries on the planet should be, in what order should be for the release schedule to maximize revenue. So incredibly powerful decision-making tools that augment our judgment and decision-making skills. Autodesk creates CAD tools, so computer-aided design tools for architecture, engineering, other design. And their tools are now augmented with generative design technology. What this does is it takes the initial design that the human creates and it riffs on it, creates hundreds or thousands of alternatives, puts those through simulation, and then comes back to the designer and says, if you tweaked this design in this way, it would be 15 cents cheaper to make, or have 6% greater tensile strength in this direction. Or if you re-architected the layout of this floor, you could get in 3 more offices and improve flow through the office space. These are the types of capabilities that are here today. And what it's doing is it's building on the capabilities of the human. The output, as you see in these photographs all around me here, sort of organic looking. Getting to these great results is something that neither the human nor the AI could do on their own. So this is about the partnership of a human and a machine working together. And I think this is a sort of signal, an indicator of where all of our working lives will be in the future as we collaborate with AIs to help us do our jobs better, to be more creative, more intuitive, make better, higher quality decisions, and so on. And what's important about this example I'm giving now is that when people tried this, they were more productive. But what's more important is they reported they felt more imaginative and more creative as they did their jobs. Let's talk about another example, this time around sensors. In China, Starbucks is run by a franchise company, and they have employed a technology that connects the Wi-Fi hotspot to the music system. The Wi-Fi hotspot is used to count how many phones it can see in the store, and therefore how many people, roughly, are in the store. They then change the music. If the store is quiet, they put on some chill-out music, and they have lower volume, and they're encouraging you to sit down, relax, order another cup of coffee, maybe buy a piece of cake. If the store is busy, they increase the tempo, they increase the volume, and they get people in and out of the store. Money, money, money. This has had a material impact on the business results of Starbucks China. So how could you create one of these responsive environments that responds to human presence, to human needs, to better serve customers and to optimize your company's business results? I'll give you another example of technology being used to solve a business problem in a new and interesting way. This is a robot from Stanley Robotics. It's a robot valet. It can pick up a car and park it. Now you might think, well, that's just replacing a human, but it's doing it in a very different way. You don't need to open the doors of the car. So the owner of the car keeps their keys. So there's not a security issue. There's not a worry with a grubby valet making the car dirty. And because you're not opening and closing the doors, you can park the cars much more closely together. Now, in London Gatwick Airport, where this is on trial right now, that's important because space is at a premium. So robots can be used to solve problems in a different way. It's not just about replacing human labor. It's about solving problems in a different way. Now, I mentioned I would talk about supply chains and blockchain. In the news all the time, we're confronted with horrible stories of climate change, pollution, deforestation, human labor issues with forced labor and child labor. It's difficult to hear and to know that we're all part of the problem, because it is human consumption, all the things that we need in our lives, that lead to these problems. Now, it's ultimately all of our fault. But it's sort of not, in that we don't know, when we're looking at two products and we have a choice to make, which is the one that has the lowest impact on the environment, which is the one that we can be assured was not made by child labor, and so on. So bringing transparency to supply chains, both to empower consumers to vote with their wallets and buy against their values, but also to help brands so that they can keep the promises that they make to consumers. They can reduce their risk of being caught doing something, a supplier that's 3 levels down the chain from them, doing something they're not aware of and getting them in trouble. So using blockchain technology to underpin that, to build these transparency systems, will make the world a better place. I think is going to be a big, significant change as we see digital transformation of the supply chain in the 2020s. Another technology I want to talk about, augmented reality. It really changes the workplace of the future by overlaying digital objects and information and bringing them into the field of view of workers. Virtual reality cuts you off from the physical world. Augmented reality, which is a technology that's a little longer to come up with because it's slightly more difficult to do, that keeps you connected to the physical world around you and makes it much more useful in solving business problems in the workplace. Problems like, for example, helping a worker who's not seen this robot or that car engine or that piece of equipment for the first time. Instead of having to send them on a 12-week training course to get used to using that new device, now they put on the pair of magic glasses and it walks them through step by step. Go here, unscrew this, pull out this piece, do this test. Okay, well, let's go this way. Let's replace this part. Very powerful technology. If you've seen The Matrix, where they learned how to fly a helicopter or fight jiu-jitsu by having that spike shoved in the back of their head and then suddenly they could do it, it's kind of like that, only without the spike in the back of the head. You can use this technology for collaboration, so to collaborate with people on different sides of the world and feel like you share the same space together. And for people who work with their hands or in mobile environments, rapid moving mobile environments like in retail, that's 80% of people. This is technology for the rest of us. All the workers in construction and other environments where they're using their hands, they can't use a laptop or even a tablet or a phone because they're too busy using their hands. So in this example, I'm showing a product from Augmedics, which is overlaying imaging information, in this case an X-ray, but it could be a CT scan, so that the surgeon sees it overlaid on the patient. Far more accurate, lets them see exactly what they need to do, makes the surgery shorter, improves outcomes, improves the overall result for the patient. So a very powerful technology, essentially giving a surgeon X-ray vision. Now, where is this going longer term? Right now, there are these headsets. They'll get better over time. You can expect to see longer battery life and lighter weight and better quality displays in the coming years. But this is where we're heading ultimately. Companies like Mojo are working to create a contact lens. You put in your eye and you'll see a digital display as that information is fired directly into your eye. Super sci-fi sounding, but that is where we're heading, and that's why I think augmented reality is a very powerful technology for computing in general, but particularly for the future of work. And all of this will be stitched together with 5G networking technology and complemented by satellite technology. All of these satellite companies are going to be working hard to connect everything on the planet. In the next 5 years, we will put more satellites into space than we have in all of human history. And that is going to lead us to be able to connect everything and everyone everywhere. This leads every company to now start asking this question. Look at each one of your business processes, and most companies have, 3 to 5 business processes, a sales process, a manufacturing process, a support process, and so on. Break that down into as narrow a set of tasks as possible, and then ask the tough question. Given that what you know about technology's capabilities now and in the near future, which of those tasks is best done by a human, and which of those tasks is best done by a robot or an AI? And how do you build high-functioning teams where you're able to hand off back and forth between those tasks using sensors and data to be able to hand off between those 3 constituents? And you do that because each of those 3 has different strengths and weaknesses. For example, you want to use robots for very repetitive work, where you need strength and stamina, dangerous environments, and so on. You use AIs, where you need to handle vast amounts of data to make predictions about the future, perhaps to remove bias from a process. It is possible to do that if you train your AIs accurately. Now, the good news is there's still a lot more in the human column here, creativity, collaboration, and those sorts of things. We're not going to displace humans from the workplace, but we can create these high-functioning environments where humans and machines work together to get great results. This was highlighted in a Harvard Business Review study with a paper that Accenture contributed to. They did a lot of research with companies doing automation and augmentation, and this is what they found. Those companies that deploy AI mainly to displace employees will see only short-term productivity gains. Firms achieve the most significant performance improvements when humans and machines work together. That's where all companies need to be looking as they figure out what their business strategies, their technology strategies are for the coming decade. So to summarize, we're going to see a widening gap between companies that make the investments in these new technologies and those who are slow to invest or don't invest at all, to the point where that becomes a competitive disadvantage. What it means is your organization needs a digital-first culture where everybody in the company is thinking about, how do I embrace digital technology first to solve these business problems? It's not an afterthought. It's not, oh yeah, we need a website. How do you put digital at the core of your business strategy? Part of that is about embracing augmentation, using technology to support your workers, to elevate their capabilities, not to replace them. And my encouragement to you all is go faster than you think. This is going to go way, way faster than anybody imagines. Whatever pace, whatever trajectory you are on and embracing digital transformation, plan on going twice as fast. These 6 technologies are going to act like new colors in your palette as you innovate. so you can combine them in creative new ways to solve business problems that have never been solved before. If it's helpful to you, I created a guide on this. You can go to my website, which is baldfuturist.com, BALDfuturist.com, and download this worksheet that you see here. It looks at the 5 major business challenges that companies have and then links them to those 6 technologies and give you 30 ideas, actually more than 30 ideas, on how you can bring innovation into every corner of your business. If you want to dive even deeper, there's a copy of my book you can pick up there too, The Innovation Ultimatum, Amazon and all those types of bookstores. I hope this was useful to you. If you ever want to get hold of me, these are my contact details. I appreciate your time and attention. I hope that you enjoy the rest of NASSCOM, and I hope you have a great day. Hey, over to you, Shreya.